Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep into dreaming of being there in our favorite Bible stories. Tonight, we begin with the quiet hours of Noah, after the rain from Genesis chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. These aren't sermons. They're stories retold slowly to help your body rest and your soul come home back to God. This story drifts in through a soft corner of the temple, the kind of story that waits for you as you loosen your day. You might hear it in the hush of a linen robe, in the low steady flicker of a lamp wick, or in the gentle pulse that drifts under your own hand pressed against your heart. Eli sleeps nearby. His soft breathing is steadier than the oil lamp. Samuel is smaller than the dark. He slips onto his side, listening for nothing, then everything, then nothing again. Sometimes stories wait outside the main roads. Noah floated above a world that had stopped moving. He didn't know when to open the window. In the story, a raven goes out, then a dove. But tonight that's far away. Tonight we are just here in waiting, in the silent body of the temple, in the dust that settles, in the sound after breath. This video was made to help you drift to sleep while drawing near to something holy. If you nod off, the ark will still be here. The lamp will burn softly. The story will keep walking with you so you can rest all the way to the end. You don't have to listen closely. Just let it settle into your breath. There is a sound to the ark resting, not of sails snapping or voices raised, just the soft groan of old wood settling in the cold morning air. Sometimes a breath of oxen, slow, steady, floats from below, then disappears into the hush. Water droplets tap somewhere, quiet and patient. If you listen, it's almost like the world is holding itself still, waiting. Inside the ark, not much moves. Noah lies awake before he sits up. He looks at his hands. They don't feel like miracle hands, just older, drier than before. He blinks in the gray half-light. Beside him, folded linen in a neat stack. Not for any reason, except someone believed that folded things make waiting easier. A child tiptoes across the planks, careful not to wake the lion, the bear, or even the cat curled by a cold beam. She cradles corn in her palm, feeds it to a quiet dove, the dove's wings barely fluttering, just enough for anyone awake to hear feathers shiver. Even the doves, it seems, know how to wait. They eat it quietly, as if listening too. Somewhere farther down, the air shivers with the slow breath of a cow. The steady munch, pause, munch again. No one hurries. The ark feels stretched thin by silence, the kind that says there's nothing to do now but breathe together and hope. Wood creaks with every move like a spirit sighing in the dawn. A woman is kneeling, folding cloth, humming softly. It isn't a hymn. It's just something she remembers from before the rain. Her fingers smooth wrinkles away. Fold and pat, fold and pat. Let this moment stretch. Even the ordinary things feel holy, with the world asleep above the clouds. No prayers spoken aloud, just a gentle wish in her hands that there will be clean earth and sunlight and home. The mist is pressed thick against the hull. If anyone looked outside, they'd see it sitting heavy and pale, wood swollen with the memory of rain. Drips fall soft, every few heartbeats slipping down from the ceiling, tracing secret lines on the floor. The air inside is cool and smells of straw, damp fur, old leather, and hope just under the surface. Sometimes someone shifts on a wooden bench or a sheep stirs, letting out a sigh. Then it's quiet again. Even the children don't ask questions. They learned, somewhere in the floating weeks, not to fill the silence. Sometimes the best thing you can do is listen for a gentle voice in the hush, even if it never quite comes. No one paces. No one counts the days out loud. Noah traces the cracks in the wall with his thumb. He's not worried, just waiting. Sometimes that's the bravest kind of trust there is. Everyone here is waiting in their own way. The lamps burn low, not much more than a golden glow. Shadows wrap around the corners. Each breath is slow, careful. The world outside is soft with mist, but for those inside it's just another morning, the ark still, the air thick, hope humming somewhere beneath the boards. Let this stillness hold you. Don't rush through the waiting. Even this silence is holy. If your eyes are heavy, that's okay. The night listens with you, and so does God. Sometimes staying awake in the temple felt like floating inside a breath. Samuel's eyes opened to the darkness, a brush of air where the curtain met the stones. He shifted beneath the woven blanket. The floor was cool, warmed only by the weight of his body pressed against the grain of old cedar. Across the room, the temple lamp needed tending, its flame breathing slow, shrinking to a thin flicker inside the curve of cool brass. He pushed himself up with quiet arms, careful not to wake Eli. The priest's breathing rolled softly from his mat, the slow in-out of someone deep in dreaming. Each breath was its own lullaby, another sign the night was still being held. Samuel's fingers searched for the lamp, smooth metal, worn where hands had steadied it before, the touch of priests and old women, the ones who wiped away dust when no one was looking. He felt the memory of their work in the cool handle. His thumb followed the oval edge, not hurrying, letting the roundness settle beneath his skin until he nearly forgot why he'd reached for it at all. The temple was layered in shadows, some thin as a falling shawl, some thick as rain. He let the darkness press against him like an extra blanket. In a corner, oil and wicks waited patiently, untouched. He thought of how nothing rushed here, not even the light. Even the creaking ark, safe beneath its coverings, seemed to pause between groans, as if it were listening too. Outside, the wind pressed low against the doors. Something ancient in the sound, like Noah's world caught between waters, waiting for a sign. He tried to picture the ark, dry and rocking by a window, Noah's fingers curled around a boarded ledge, releasing a bird from its warm, patient hands. He imagined a lamp like this one, heavy, awkward, swinging from a nail above Noah's head, soft light trembling on wet wood. Maybe there was a ladder, rising up toward a cloudy patch where hope floated. A place to stand for just a moment and listen for feathers or rain or God himself saying, "Wait a little longer." Samuel's breath deepened, heart beat slow. In these hours he learned not to ask for much, only what the lamp and the shadows could give. Flickering gold in his palm, the silent hymn of the walls, Eli's peaceful breathing just out of reach. He set the lamp down and listened, not for words but for the almost voice that lives inside stillness. A kind of listening that felt like climbing a rung, pausing before another step, letting the quiet stretch out inside his chest, as steady as rain on clay. You could hear everything if you let yourself grow still enough. The way Eli's blanket crumpled, the faint rush of his own blood, the warm oil settling deeper into the wick, a distant drip where the wall met earth. Nothing needed to happen. It was holy just to lie in the hush and not be afraid. The story of Noah sailed invisibly in the space between breaths. A dove, a raven, a dry patch waiting beneath swollen rivers. Someone somewhere drifting toward hope. But for now, here in the temple, all that mattered was the softness under Samuel's fingers, and the hush that belongs to people who listen when hardly anything stirs. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The air warmed again by the lamp's tiny flame. He knew God was here, not in a thunderclap, but in the way darkness softened around the edges of things, gentle as a hand steadying a ladder in the dark. Let this quiet moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. The night listens with you. Someone wakes before the light, feet finding the cool floor by memory. A quiet shuffle across packed earth, the air still holding last night's darkness, except under the rough timber beam, where morning always begins. Hands lift a sack of flour, soft and warm from the storeroom. Dust puffs up, slow, lazy, caught in a sunbeam. Someone laughs a little but quietly, so the boy and the goat resting in the corner don't stir. Oil glows gold in a shallow bowl. It moves almost too slowly to notice when poured and pools thick over the cracked old table. Fingers dip and swirl. Two more hands join, smaller Samuel's. His thumb presses into the dough just to feel it give, then springs back. No one hurries. The kneading is steady, the same movement as yesterday and tomorrow. The dough breathes in their palms, and even the silence sits down beside it. The goat shifts. The boy watches, shoulders tucked in, eyes following a small cloud of flour as it lands in the folds of his tunic. He lets out a quiet breath, the kind that is more comfort than sigh. Steam curls from a piece of baked flatbread, fragile and hot. The air is thick with toasted grain and old wood, and there's the faint, sweet ache of something almost burned but not quite. A meal coming from nothing and enough for everyone. Most days things blur together here. Patterns in the way the old spoon is set on the ledge. Clumsy folds in linen stacked for tomorrow. A jar always refilled, never more than half empty. No one minds. There's comfort in the sameness. Warm palms against bread pressed into life by the same hands again and again. A prayer drifts up, it's never spoken out loud, but it's there in the swirl of oil, in the pause between flips of the flatbread, in the way no one interrupts the quiet. The room lets him listen. The beam above, heavy and unmovable, knows every breath, every crumb. Outside, someone sweeps dust from the step, slow and careful. The world rushes somewhere out beyond the gate, but inside, time lingers like the scent of grain and sun-warmed wool. The boy sits, knees up, beside the drowsy goat, and the day pauses with him. Let this moment stretch, the smell of warmth and bread and morning just beginning, the old beam overhead, the same as always. Even in the repetition, God is. Hands break bread. Silence isn't empty. A prayer isn't wasted just because it's quiet. And no one is alone under the beam, even on an ordinary morning. The morning after all that endless rain, the ark creaks and groans as everyone settles into another day of waiting. Somewhere close, a pot of lentils murmurs on the fire. The animals are quieter now. Even the small hands brushing grain into baskets seem hushed. Noah stands near the one window, small, barely enough for a folded hand. He lifts it open, just a little, letting in air that touches his face with a coolness not felt for a long time. He pauses there, listening for anything other than the old ache of wood on water, but nothing new comes. Only the scent of slow dust and sleeping hay, A raven, dark and silent, climbs onto his palm. Nobody watches. The others sweep or fold cloth or simply wait. Noah holds the bird. Its wings are quiet and unsure, pressed close. He does not speak. He lifts his arm, a slow, gentle motion. The raven looks at him. There is no signal, no blessing, no grand command, just the opening and the waiting, the soft, uncertain pause. The bird goes, not fast, not eager, more like a thought leaving the mind. Feathers slide through the air. There is no song, just the odd hush of wings brushing past, vanishing into the colorless distance outside. No one marks the moment except Noah and maybe God. No announcement is made. The raven disappears into a sky with no edge and no promise. He becomes a memory almost as soon as he leaves, fading until he is nothing, in the way that questions fade or prayers left unsaid. Noah closes the window. The ark feels smaller again. Maybe the world is less crowded without that silent shape. Maybe it isn't. He lets the stillness fill him. He asks for nothing and still feels full. The day simply continues. Noah sits near the food pots, shelling seeds with slow hands. He watches the river of sunlight creep across the floor. Others mumble quietly or doze against walls, hands slack at their sides. The boat rocks, barely noticeable, the water carrying them onward to nothing in particular. Inside, life is all waiting. No good news, no bad news, just the long stretch between hopes. Let this moment stretch, too, as wide and slow as the water beyond the boards. Even this silence is holy. If anyone looks out, they see only endless pale outside. No raven, no sign. The air is empty and open. It could mean anything, or it could mean nothing. On the ark there are chores to do. There are bowls to wash and straw to sweep back into sloppy piles. Someone braids reeds. Someone tries not to think of land. Most let their minds drift, half asleep, listening for a miracle that doesn't rush in or wave. No one notices the prayer, but it is heard. So the day shrinks itself into another evening. Noah sits in the not quite dark, the lamp burning low, looking at that little window. He can't see what's become of the raven. He doesn't ask. He just keeps waiting, folded into the hush of not knowing, released for a time from needing answers. The night listens with you. The lamp burned low on a ledge, its circle of light barely touching the stone floor. The room felt too big for just the two of us, me folding, her humming. We didn't speak much, and the quiet inside the temple was thick but soft, the kind that makes you breathe slower without meaning to. I took a tunic, Samuel's maybe. It still smelled like last week's rushes and ash. I laid it flat across my knees and wondered how many times cloth can be mended before it forgets its shape. Sometimes stitches hold more stories than words do. Beside me, the elder woman smoothed a sleeve with careful hands. Her skin was thin, marked by sun and years. Every fold she made was slow, like maybe she remembered where each stain had come from, mud from running to the river in the rains, oil from a careless lantern at dusk. She paused, letting her fingers rest on a patched seam. The silence was almost warm. A cough echoed from the shadows, sudden, tilted, then gone. She pressed her lips and eyed the lamp, as if making sure it would last till we finished. For a moment her hand hovered over the cloth, not doing anything at all. I dropped my thread. It rolled a little way across the stone and settled by her foot. She tucked it back in my palm without looking up. Just a habit from so many nights like this. The future doesn't always come as thunder. Sometimes it shuffles and sighs and fits itself quietly inside folded blankets. In the mornings, the light comes in quiet, gray, and soft on the edge of everything. There are days when nothing moves, except for the little ways we tidy our places. Folding a blanket, smoothing bread dough, sweeping just the strip of floor we can reach before breakfast. That's what I remember, not the storms outside or even the rain that found its way through the cracks. Just the way the world felt slow, as if the whole earth was pausing to listen. Noah barely made a sound. His breathing was steady. Sometimes I watched him from the side, dusting off a corner of a crate, tying back a loose bit of rope. Life inside the ark settled down into chores and waiting. Samuel, smaller than most, quiet in the shadows, often sat cross-legged beside the lamp. We lent each other silences, not needing to talk. Our days were measured by small things, checking the water bowls, folding cloth, mending a hem. Then, after many days that blurred together, when the sky was still pressed low and the windows stayed shut, there was a change, so quiet you could miss it. Noah opened the small window. The air shifted. We waited, not out of hope or fear, just because that's what the moment asked. A raven stepped into the thin light. Its wings fluttered, slow and certain, then it left. No one really followed its path. The sky seemed just as gray as before. Noah lowered his head and went back to work. The window closed again. The silence grew long, like breath drawn in but not released. It could have stayed that way forever, but then the window opened once more. This time a dove was chosen. She was smaller, with quiet eyes, and she leaned forward, toes finding the ledge, feathers shifting through the gray. There was nothing loud about her going. She just stepped onto the edge and left. It was as if she trusted the sky would hold her. Below, Noah didn't look up. He set down his tool, hands resting against his knees. Samuel, still and patient, breathed along with the rhythm of the room. There was no rush, no sound except the soft lowing of animals and the quiet of people doing nothing, saying nothing. The lamp flickered. Someone paused to check the water. Outside, the clouds didn't part, but the window stood open for a while before closing. Sometimes I wonder if the world changed at all while we waited. Mostly, it felt like breathing together in a place where days slid into one another and nothing had to happen. Maybe that was the secret. We didn't know if the dove would return. We just waited. We went back to folding cloth, to tracing fingers along the wall, to listening for the small sounds of life around us. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. At night, Samuel curled under his blanket, listening to the soft sounds of Eli's breathing on the other side of the darkness. The story of the dove was just another quiet piece of the world. He closed his eyes and let the waiting settle into his bones. The night listened with him. The lamp burned low, and nothing else needed to happen for the presence of God to fill the space in between. Samuel lay on his side, cheek pressed into the stone floor, which sometimes held onto the day's heat even after the sun slipped away. The weight of his small body fit into the hollow between two flagstones, as if it had been made just for him. His breathing fell in with the quiet, careful rhythm of the night, soft air in, soft air out, never louder than the gentle scrape of Eli's breath across the room. Every so often, the old priest's snoring hitched, then settled, as if he too was settling deeper into trust. The lamp by the ark sent up a sleepy light, oil pooling, then flickering against old stones. When Samuel blinked, golden spots danced on the inside of his eyelids. He was filled with that heavy tiredness that makes muscles loose and heart beat slow. Still he listened, not for something loud, but for the small, settling sounds that meant everything was quietly in its place. Behind the curtain, deeper in the shadow, someone, maybe younger than him, held a sheep. The sheep's side rose and fell slowly, only half awake. Small hands moved over tangled wool. A wordless lullaby rose. The song was more like breathing than singing. It had no shape, no story, just comfort, moving through the hush like a secret no one needed to explain. Samuel turned his head just enough for his ear to cool against the stone. He could taste the air, something between old wood and olive oil, and a hint of sweet hay from somewhere he couldn't see. His fingers found a crack in the floor and pressed softly, a place to anchor himself, just as Eli's breaths anchored the room. Let this moment stretch. Even a sleeping body understands sacred space. The night was a blanket tucking itself all around. Hands, legs, and the small arch of his back all heavy now, pressed by the gentle promise that nothing needed to happen and nothing would break. He watched the oils flicker, lean and straighten, lean and straighten. The slow, simple light felt like waiting, waiting without hurry or hunger or need. Or maybe it wasn't really waiting. Maybe it was just being. Everything that mattered was already right here. Warm floor, quiet breath, lives held together just by being near enough to hear one another's resting. Sacred silence came and stayed. Now and then he heard the child behind the curtain humming again, a sound so gentle it could only belong to the space between heartbeat and sleep. The sheep sighed. Samuel felt his own ribs move, breathing with trust, not forcing anything, not calling out, not afraid. Outside, the night pressed its cool face against the temple walls. Inside, even the darkness seemed friendly. Every line of the stones, every soft hair on his arms, every warm spot under his knees, held, steady, trusting. He let the heaviness gather in his chest and limbs, a slow tide, not a worry in the world. The softness of the air around Eli's bed, the closeness of wool and the soundless hum behind the curtain, the oil lamp stretching its life for just a few hours more. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Sometimes you didn't need to speak. God already knew the shape of a night spent breathing beside trust. It is early but not dawn. The lamps are still steady over the wood beams. The straw is cold, pressed flat by hundreds of feet, hooves too. It smells of earth and wool and what water leaves behind. No one speaks. Sometimes when brothers walk together, there are no words between them. Only the space for breath and movement. The two boys lift the pails, one with each hand. The buckets are wide, made from clay, tied with woven rope at the handles. Even empty, they are heavy. When full, the water creeps up toward the lip, dark and quiet as the night beyond the hull. The ramp moves under their weight, gently back and forth. A long, slow sway that pulls at ankles, makes sandals drag. Their feet leave arcs behind them in the straw, soft and curved, like the moon as it sits above, unseen but always there. Step by step, the water sloshes. The brothers watch it tilt, holding it steady so nothing spills. No shouting here. Just the small sound of sloshing and now and then the careful breath, sometimes sharp, then soft again. The old man, sitting beside a half-shuttered door, looks up. He does not say much. He watches, slow and silent, as if time has lost its hurry for him. The ark hums with quiet work. Cows shift weight. Birds twitch, making a soft clatter high in the shadows. The ramp rocks a little more. The older brother grips both handles, leans forward, steps until the ramp stretches flat. He pauses so the younger can catch up. The buckets bump, still held high. A little water spills, just enough to leave a mark in the straw, a darker spot that will dry before anyone notices. He does not frown or sigh. He just lifts the bucket a little higher. It is the third trip of many today. Sometimes it feels as if all the living things above and below are resting between the same two heartbeats. The only rhythm is the water itself. It's slower now. The brothers match their swaying to it, learning how to walk so that nothing escapes. Even the quiet is carried gently, unspilled. There are no stories being told. Just bodies working, small hands wrapped around rope, the soft rub of sandals against wood and straw and leather. And when one brother stumbles, the other stands close, and the buckets do not fall. Not tonight. The old man smiles to himself. He asks for nothing from them. They do not see his smile, the way it rests in the corner of his mouth, easy and light for no reason at all. Watching for him is enough. Let this moment stretch, the water, the sway, the quiet breathing, a kind of peace found in doing what needs to be done. Even the smallest job can pull the whole world forward, one bucket at a time. The lamps burn low. The ramp no longer creaks. The boys step down together, careful not to wake anyone. Their arms ache, but the ache is good. It means the work still matters. In a place crowded with waiting, patience passes the time. Even this silence is holy. Somewhere, almost out of earshot, a dove coos. The old man's eyes are heavy. No one calls his name, but he feels known anyway, carried quietly, just as he has carried others before, just as these boys carry water now. Sleep follows the sway. Shadows nestle deeper into corners. Nothing has changed, yet nothing was wasted. The brothers go again, up the ramp, arms ready, footprints trailing behind them. Soft reminders that someone is always willing to carry what needs to be moved. And God needs nothing more than a heart that stays open, all through the night. Let it settle, unnoticed, into your breath. There is a small bowl. It is wooden and has pressed shapes along its edge, worn smooth from many quiet meals. The figs rest inside, their skin dusky and soft, not quite purple, not quite brown. They give off a faint scent, a little like honey but still green and earthy. Some figs are split, their insides pale pink, seeded through like the pattern on someone's palm. The ox lies nearby. He sleeps heavy on the ground, chin against his folded leg. If you breathe slow enough, you can hear his breath blend with the air, mixing quietly with the sound of crickets and the far-off water jar shifting in the dust. A shadow of one fig leaf is pressed against his side, unmoving. One of the girls is already sitting, knees against her chest, thumb tucked around the rim of the bowl. Her robe is just a bit dusty. She peels back the skin of a fig with careful fingers, and her nail catches the soft edge. The peel comes away in a thin strip, leaving a glistening bite behind. She looks straight ahead, not at anyone here, and lays the peeled fig into another bowl beside her. She doesn't look up, and she doesn't wait for thanks. Another hand, a smaller one, takes a fig and rolls it between the palms. The fruit gives just a little. The top yields, and a small tear reveals the pale seeds inside. A thumb digs gently at the edge. The sticky juice clings, washing the skin in something sweet and pink. The room smells even more like harvest now, and the air feels thicker. Nobody talks. Not because there is nothing to say, but because talking would thin this moment too much. Small noises happen: the scrape of a foot, the shift of a robe, someone's tired breath. The ox sighs. Every few moments, a fig changes hands. Sometimes the bowl is pushed by a bare foot, then brought closer by a careful hand. Figs slip into half-empty bowls. A stem is set aside on a washcloth. One piece falls, and nobody moves to pick it up right away. A sparrow outside calls once, then hushes itself. Let this moment stretch, no rush to move, no need to fill the air. Even the lamp burns lower, softening the edges of everything it touches. A boy sits across from the ox, legs stretched out, arm cradling his head. Faint dust clings to his heel. He closes his eyes now and then, not asleep but not bothered to keep them open. Every so often he opens one eye to see where the bowl is. If it is near, he slips a fig into his mouth, chewing slow enough that each bite feels cool, soft, sticky at the edges. He doesn't look at anyone, and no one looks back. A lamp flickers and catches a gold thread in someone's sleeve. The figs inside the bowl seem smaller now, but never empty. Each time someone takes, someone else already plans to leave a half for later. Small mercies grow quietly underground. You do not see them, but you feel them. Nobody says thank you, not out of rudeness or even habit, but because the thanks lingers somewhere just outside each gentle movement, heavier than words, softer than sighing. The heart already knows. Each time a hand brings a fig close, another hand is ready to let go. Let this moment become quieter. The ox stretches his neck and the rope scratches gently over wood. A fig rolls toward someone's knee and she barely follows it with her eyes. She scoops it up and divides it, half for her bowl, half for the boy who hasn't noticed yet. The smell is richer here, syrupy and fresh, mixing with the scent of olive oil on the table nearby. This sharing happens the same way every evening. Sometimes one girl will peel a fig in a slow circle without saying anything, just pressing her thumb along the seam, letting the skin drop, never watching where it lands. Sometimes a boy will take half and tuck it into another's bowl, looking at the floor while he does it. Sometimes someone tucks a fig beneath a cloth, saving it for later without telling. There is always enough, even when there isn't much. Let every small action feel heavy with rest. The world is slow here, nothing owed, nothing subtracted. Each sharing is invisible. All around, the walls let in the night. Breezes catch the oil's candle scent and send it drifting between warm shoulders. Someone lays a hand over another's foot just to say, "I'm here." Not out loud, never out loud tonight. No one counts the pieces. No one asks who peeled or who gave. When the figs are gone, the bowl is set aside. Cloths wipe up the rest. Even the ox gets a licked fig pressed into his sleepy mouth. He chews as if it's a dream. Let the silence deepen. The girl who peeled the first fig sits back, knees tucked tighter, quiet as a secret. She looks toward a half-open door where dusk is becoming night. There is no lesson here, just the soft hush of people who understand each other, who give and take without recording or expecting anything. Tonight, it feels like the whole world is passing fruit around a sleeping animal. not because they must, but because it is what quiet hearts do when nobody is watching. Even this moment is enough. Even this silence is holy. Let the lamp burn lower still, and let your eyes slip closed, listening only to the ox breathing, and the small endless sound of figs being shared over and over until the morning. Noah folds his hands under his head, slow, careful, not to wake the pigeon dozing above him. The straw beneath his shoulders is cool on his skin. Each shift makes a quiet nest crackle. He lets his eyes slip shut in the hush, mouth barely open, breath steady, almost drifting out like smoke through the wooden slats above. It is morning, but no one's counting. The sun carries itself slow and tired across the roof, a wide hand of light crawling over the planks. Somewhere on the opposite side of the ark, a lamb sighs in its sleep. The air is thick and a little sweet from old hay. Noah listens to the silence, not because he's waiting for a sign, but because silence is all there is. Turtles rest in their corner, shells like old stones, heads just peeking out. He watches their eyes half close, the dull trust that nothing new will happen today. The world wants to hurry, but here, inside, even boredom has its own kind of holiness. Time stretches thin between each heartbeat, between each drawn-out yawn. Every creature moves slow if they move at all. A boy, maybe Shems, maybe Hams, passes by with his knees up to his chest, stepping around sleepy hens. He hides a giggle behind his hand, but even laughter sounds quieter when the world is small and closed in. Noah cracks one eye open, just for a moment, to see the dust swirl behind the boy's feet. The hush returns softer than before. No one asks for anything. No task feels urgent. Maybe there's a pot to be stirred, or seeds to sort, or bedding to shape back into place. But all of that can wait. Noah's fingers curl around a straw, feeling the whisper rub of its edge. His skin remembers sun and mud and rain, but today it only remembers resting. He thinks, maybe this is what mornings were like before time began, when there were only quiet things, a bird watching shadows, a body learning the weight of its own peace. Eli is somewhere nearby, not this day but another, lips parted in untroubled sleep, breath heavy but soft. People dreaming the same old dreams of light and dryness. Sometimes Noah can hear the turtles breathe slow, scratchy, almost like wind pressed through a fistful of grass. Their little sounds are his prayers tonight. Hush, hush, hush. The ark is not waiting for excitement. It is waiting for nothing and finds it holy. Noah's eyelids flutter, a second sleep after so many years listening, building, calling, hurting, feeding. Guilt has no place in these naps. This is obedience too, though no one sees it. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Even the boredom here is blessed. Even the dust moving in a shaft of light feels sacred, as if God himself would settle quietly in it just to keep company. No lessons, no warnings. Just a nap, long and deep, earned over endless slow days. Noah rolls onto his side, straw pressing gently against his cheek. Another slow exhale, slower inhale, brow smooth under fading shadows. Today nothing happens. Nothing is asked of him. The night listens with him. The animals wait beside him. Sacred boredom stretching further, holding them all in. He drifts again before the world begins, safe in the trust that the divine moves slow, loves quiet, and makes holy even the second sleep. The lamps lean low and sleep drifts at the edges of the room. Samuel's hands, tired from the day, curl beneath the thin linen. He feels the roughness where ash had settled into his skin, tiny grains clinging to the corners of his nails. He remembers tracing letters softly in the ash beside the altar, shapes that waited for meaning. He didn't know if anyone would read them, or if God would answer through the dust. Still, his finger moved quietly back and forth, letting the shape settle, no hurry, no purpose but the shape itself. He listens now. The sound of Eli's breath is nearby, slow, steady, trusting. There are others here, too, a woman in a distant corner, her hands making gentle marks on wood. Each stroke is hope, counting something only she understands. The days since the dove left, the days she waits to feel God again. The marks hold no stories for anyone outside. Meaning waits in silence. Meaning is not always the point. Samuel inhales, then lets it go, feeling the warmth in his chest, the way the night breathes too. The old blanket smells like old prayers, like evening dust doesn't wash away. Tonight there's no voice in the night, only the hush. That feels safe enough. He rubs ash from his middle finger, each joint soft and loose. There's still the weight of the day, folding linen quietly, setting it just so, corners almost square. No one notices these things but him. Maybe not even him sometimes, until the quiet comes and he is left only with his hands, his breath, his skin against cool linen, and the gentle ache in his knuckles, like the slow building of prayer. He looks up, just a slender slice of moon through a high window. He doesn't need the name for it. The light is enough. A way to see the dust in the air, little flecks settling onto the ark and his blanket both. Tonight, it feels like God is quiet, and that quietness is also holy. He thinks sometimes about the times when words mattered, when the grown men argued softly about what this verse or that law meant. Here in the dark, the lines drawn in ash feel deeper, older, words that can lie down and rest when everyone else does. His eyes feel heavy now. He draws his knees up, feels the coarse linen at his chin. The last breath is slow, held for a moment, then given back to God. I am here, let me rest, let the quiet come. You know me, even when I do nothing. My hands are empty but not forgot. Even silence is holy to you, stillness holds me. The Lord knows my breath, I am not forgot. God walks slowly too, grace is here. Amen, amen, amen. The morning sounded just the same as most others. Gray, then silver, then these dusty strips of sun pushing through the boards. You could hear water moving down below, gentle, always there, never rushing. The kind of sound that's there so long you forget it means something, until you hear nothing else. Breakfast happened the way breakfast does. A piece of flatbread small, a drink of water colder now than before but still not new. Everyone stayed near their work, quiet. No one rushed. Some had work from yesterday that needed more time, patching a torn sleeve, sorting out the lentils from the stones. In the corner, Noah waited. He wasn't waiting in a big way, more like you wait for a loaf to rise or for green shoots beneath the soil. There are only so many ways to pass the time, so I folded a blanket and watched the gray sky through a crack above the door. There was the dove again. She had left that morning. Everyone saw, but when she came back, it was so quiet I didn't see her at first. Just this soft landing, her wings not even brushing the wood. She didn't look special, only tired and determined, with her whole body saying, I went, I came back. In her beak was a leaf. Just torn, still shiny from dew, olive, I think. Not in a grand way. I almost didn't notice it at first. She didn't wait for applause. She didn't drop it for all to see. She just looked at Noah and made a little noise in the back of her throat. A few of us stopped what we were doing, but nothing really changed. No one shouted. No one ran to see. Noah's smile was thin, and it faded as quickly as it came. Clothes were folded. I rolled up a pillowcase, smoothing the corner where the sun had warmed it. Around us the air pressed close. Somewhere someone sighed. The fire was nearly out, so I swept up the last embers and blew on them until they brightened orange. The others gathered closer, not to celebrate, just needing the warmth while the wind still moved. It's funny how the big moments you wait for come quiet. The ark hushed. Just the sound of the dove's feet on the wood, the gentle flap of a wing as she settled. I thought that maybe this was the sign, but I didn't say so. Nobody did. Hope is strange like that. Most of the time it comes slow. It doesn't rush you. It drops into your heart like water onto dark dirt, disappearing in, then working its way further down out of sight. You feel it, but you keep working. There is always something that needs doing. I gathered up a handful of dirty shirts. Someone else stitched a patch over a worn pocket. Nobody talked about the leaf, not out loud, but you could feel something shifting, gentle, the way you can sense rain long before it falls, the way the roots of a tree drink before the leaves ever flutter. Noah looked at the dove, quiet. His fingers touched the rough line of the wood beside him, just once, just holding on. Around him, the rest of us kept busy, pretending not to watch. There is a peace that comes slow when you stop searching for the loud kind. The kind that lets your shoulders drop, lets your breath go softer. I thought about the cold floor under my bare feet and how it got warmer the longer you stood still. The dove jumped down, folded her wings, tucked her head under, and blinked. That was all. Someone laughed, a small, tired sound. The kind that comes when you're not sure if things are better yet, but the worst has maybe passed. I picked up a bowl, rinsed it, set it down. Every small act is a prayer when you're waiting for what you want but not asking out loud. You just live gently, just keep breathing. Even the ark seemed to breathe now. Noah didn't speak, but his eyes felt thoughtful, like he was holding the leaf but also holding the quiet, not ready to break it, not ready to be certain. That's how hope feels. You think you'd want to shout, but the words stay inside your chest. You hold the good thing gently. You let it settle. Let it press roots down below the surface in darkness while you keep folding, sweeping, sitting still. Nobody hurried to plan what would come next. Maybe they were all waiting for something even smaller, even quieter. Maybe this was only the beginning. The world outside was still a mystery, gray, hidden. But inside there was a hush, a silence that wasn't empty but full. That night, as lamps burned low, everyone did the same as always. Old bread bundled into cloth, kids tucked in. Noah sat beside the dove for a long time. The olive leaf stayed. Its green never looked so deep before. Tiny veins inside it, so thin you could barely see them, but carrying life. Just like hope. You wait and hold it, unsure. You notice your breathing slows. Your eyes get heavy, the way storm water sits in the dirt a while before sinking in, gone but not gone. The roots take it in unseen. Things felt the same but different. No one danced. No one ran to the window. The sound of the sea moved in and out. Later, I lay on my bed, listening, breathing with the ark, wondering if the ground had dried far beneath us, If the trees were drinking water again, quiet and slow. If somewhere roots were stretching down, pressing life up, one drop at a time, just waiting for sunlight. No one needed to understand everything to feel the changing. No one had to speak to sense the slow joy. Sometimes you wait and hope waits with you. It's quiet. You sleep. The story keeps working deep below where no one sees until the time is right. Sun may rise, storms may come again, but for now, there is enough. There is always enough even before you know it. The room settles. The breath slows. The miracle, if that's what it is, just sits with you in the dullness and the dark, gentle as water in root, not rushed, not forgotten, just waiting with you until the next small thing shines. The basin is cold and the stone it sits on is always just a little damp. Every evening before the lamps grow tired, a boy comes to wash his arms. He moves without looking up. The water, scooped in a simple clay cup, catches the faint light and shivers as he pours it, slow and careful, along his skin. Drip, drip, you can hear it. Not fast, never rushed. The sound is gentle, like the start of rain, the way it came once on the roof after the dove was sent from Noah's hand. Nothing but quiet patience floating in the room. I sit nearby, folding an old cloth, watching him sway his elbows back and forth. Rinse, let go, rinse, let go. Another boy waits behind him, not eager, just waiting, shifting his toes a little on the worn stone floor, listening too. No one hurries. No one needs to say anything. The water slides away, tracing thin, shining lines to the edge of the basin. Every time the cup pours, it's a new start. The boy's face is calm, as if the day's troubles melt with the dirt that slips down his arms. Almost every evening the same, even when no one really notices. In the next room, a woman sits on a low stool. Her hair, dark but streaked with threads of silver, hangs over one shoulder. She pulls a comb, just a twig she carved herself, through her hair, slow and steady. Pick up, drag down, set free. Over and over, a soft scraping, like rain waking up an old street at night. Samuel listens from behind the linen curtain. The sound goes on and on. Not sharp, not harsh, just the same gentle rhythm, dragged across and then lifted again. It sounds like the world is being combed out, knot by knot, all the worry loosened out to rest. He thinks about the story old Eli told, how Noah sent the dove and waited, counting the days, watching water and waiting for dry land to appear. Everything took its time. God did not hurry, not even once. The woman pauses when a tangle stops her. She breathes softly, pulls the comb free, then tries again, always gentle. Something sacred in trying, even when it's slow work no one sees. Again, the comb makes its quiet brushing sound, the hair falls smooth. No one here is showing off. No one cares if anyone sees. The basin is old, the twig comb still rough. Clean arms, clean hair, a cluster of simple good things, not for beauty or status, but because they are right. Samuel watches, almost small, more quiet than he ever thought possible. Let this moment stretch while the water trickles and the comb dances softly through the hair. There's nothing clever to say, nothing for Samuel to do except listen and breathe. The dignity lives here in repeating what is good again and again without hurry. He can almost feel God's eyes, somewhere gentle, watching in the way only God can, calm, patient, glad just for the goodness in the slow, familiar work. The night listens with you. The arc curves close to night. You can feel the empty space pressed up around it, how all sound gathers and softens against the wood. Every footstep is swallowed. The wood creaks when somebody turns or sighs. There's a hush inside you and outside, too. Breath lifts the rope above, slow and even. You hear the gentle shift on the boards below. Hammocks cradle the tired cloth folding, then settling. Lanterns burn low. The light is curved, too, like it doesn't dare break the dark. Two girls, young and already half asleep, pass a stub of candle between their hammocks. They whisper, but barely at all. You catch only their shadows, handing the warmth back and forth like a secret. One says, warm. The other, yes. They pull their blankets up. Good. Someone breathes a prayer so quietly, you're not sure it even happened. Her lips don't move. She just lies there, eyes open, gazing toward the darkness that hides the ark. She thinks the Lord can hear what no one else can. You lie still and listen. The hush is big. Even the softest prayer is part of it. The rope above sighs. Lanterns flicker and relearn their shapes. Tired feet find rest without asking. Eli coughs once in his sleep and the night absorbs it. You almost feel grateful for something you can't name. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. Nothing more happens. Nobody stands. Nothing breaks. Just the dark and the comfort of being near together. And the ark curving in the gloom as if God himself prefers to travel quietly, pulled in close by the hush. There is a steady hush. Inside the wood, Noah leans his weight against a beam, rough under his shoulder where his tunic covers only so much. The morning is calm, the kind that asks for nothing but a breath or two. He places a palm flat against the floorboards. Underneath, a mountain holds them firm as a kept promise. Solid, silent, dry probably, but he doesn't race to see. There is the arc of the hollow hush of its ribs, and the soft winter of used-up hay, and the hush of animals half asleep. Even the sound of their breathing feels like a prayer answered in slow motion. He listens. The ark creaks a little. A dove fluffs its wings on the crossbeam. Dust sifts in the stale air. There is no hurry now. Noah breathes, just once. It's enough for this hour. Years of rain, months of questions, but today only waiting. He stretches his fingers wider, feeling the grain of the wood where water once pressed and pressed. The floor is dry. He smiles. No one notices, a small, private smile. The kind you wear when you think of something kind that happened a long time ago. Animal sounds shift. Someone's goat coughs. There is the scrape of feet in straw, and the wooden thud of a trough set against the wall. Shem lets out a soft sigh nearby, then goes quiet again. Everyone has learned to be gentle with what's left of the morning. Noah brushes flecks of horn and oat off his robe. He wonders idly about breakfast. There will be flatbread. Always flatbread, made in the cramped corner where the corner touches the slope of the mountain. He loses himself in these tiny chores. Brushing, mending, checking the cords that hold the barrels upright. Some have frayed. No one blames the wood for being worn out by water. There's a wooden cup from Ham, a sliver missing. Noah runs a thumb along its edge. It fits smooth into the dip of his hand. Everything fits better after waiting. Even the empty spaces aren't empty now. They're held by something invisible, maybe hope, maybe just air and dust settling at last on what used to tremble. Japheth whispers something. Noah can't make out the words. It doesn't matter. Nothing urgent can happen here today. Even news would feel too loud inside these holy shrunken walls. The world all water once held at bay. Now the mountain beneath him doesn't shift, and neither does his heart. The lamps have burned low, oil nearly gone. Shadows stack up quietly in the corners, folding over baskets, settling where the feet have not wandered. One of the children asks whether the sun is out. He says softly that he thinks so, but he doesn't look. There is no need to see the sky through the hatch. The miracle is not in the looking, but in the not needing to know for sure. Somewhere above, the dove waits as she always has near the opening, near the edge of the what comes next. Noah pulls a blanket tighter and sits on the middle stair that leads up to the stores of dried fruit. There is comfort in work and more comfort in resting after work is done. He closed his eyes for a little while, not because he fears the landing isn't real, but because every waiting day makes the next step sweeter. Time does not rush, even for the rescued. There is a feeling beneath his feet, the weight of 1,000 prayers all stored inside the ground. He breathes again, the sort of breath that lets his chest loosen almost entirely. Even praise can be silent. Gratitude trickles slow, like winter light across the far edge of the floor. No one else speaks. No one needs to. He thinks about the stories that will be told, but not today. Today, it is enough to let the hands rest. The hands that built, carried, gathered, shielded. Now they learn to be empty too. He sits with that emptiness quietly. A child laughs, the sound muffled in wool chasing a beetle across a plank. Noah watches and does not speak. Some miracles crawl on many legs, some come to rest in silence. Mercy, he thinks, is not always the thing that saves you. Sometimes it's the thing that lets you wait. A slow breeze moves through the seams of the ark. Someone somewhere speaks of opening a window. Not yet, he thinks. There is mercy in sitting a little longer with the reverence of not knowing what waits outside. He remembers the first days. The climb, the closing of the door, the shaking of bones. Now the same hands that once hammered and hauled are allowed to be still, allowed to lay flat between wood and rock, to know, quietly, that something unmovable holds them up. His eyes close. He lets the stillness stretch until it feels holy. Nothing must still become something. The mountain waits. God waits. Noah waits not in doubt but agreement. It is very boring. And it is very, very good. Someone hands him a little water in a cracked vessel. He drinks slow. He does not say thank you. He does not need to. Even the silence has become a kind of prayer. Even the waiting feels safe. One bird calls, another answers. The child with the beetle grows tired and settles against the beam, eyes heavy. Noah listens. He closes his eyes again and lets his hand rest, palm down, onto the dry, unspeaking wood. It is enough. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The world outside waits too. Before the morning there was only the sound of water with its slow, steady slosh against wood. No one spoke much these last days. Voices had become small, worn thin, like sandals left too long in puddles. Even the animals, usually restless in the gray dawn, hardly rustled. Everyone waited without asking, without expecting. They just listened to the hush. One day, with no warning, a new sound slipped in from outside. It happened so quietly that the first few did not notice. But I was cleaning out a dish near the lamp, and then, through the open crack above, a bird called. Just a simple, yellow trill. Not longing, not complaint. just bird song, plain and bright as if the world outside had never changed. No one answered, not Noah, not any of the daughters or sons. Just the sound, leaf light and careless, trailing through the air. Someone lifted their head. The youngest one, maybe. No words, just a slow, steady stare, trying to understand what it meant, this voice after so many empty days. Another call. Not the same bird. Higher, wilder, then more. In pairs, in odd bursts. Winged voices spilling through holes and seams without apology or worry, each one announcing itself, unafraid of silence or of getting it wrong. We did not move to greet them. Nobody whispered for the ark to open. A few hands went still in their work. Bread dough sat half kneaded, wool unpicked. It was like a congregation, the kind that forgets to sing and remembers to listen. You could feel how badly we wanted to speak. A question pressed on each tongue. Is it time? What did that mean? Has the world out there found its voice? But Noah said nothing, not even a glance. Only the birds were speaking now. The ark and its people let the wildness fill all the empty places. It takes practice to listen, not the listening you do when you're waiting for a knock at the door or a piece of news or an answer to your prayers. Just plain listening, like the animals do, silent to the sound of feather and wind and rain. If I'm honest, the birds were better at it. They practiced every day, talking to nothing, taking no offense at the silence. Joy in what returned and what did not. Inside we listened like that, each breath awaiting, not for a message, just for the moment to be itself. I watched as old Shem folded his mat and set it by the wall. His hands shook, but he didn't mind. Every so often he glanced up, at nothing, just to let the sound rest on his ears and float away. Nearby, the boys stacked empty jars. Someone hummed under his breath, but softly, as though not to disturb the bird voices, even now threading through the cracks. Across the floor, Japheth's wife rubbed oil into a dry place on her arm. She watched the window, eyes unfocused, letting the world wash over her. No need to interpret this miracle. No one had to explain why the birds had come back, and no one tried. In my own small way, I listened too. Not to figure out what should come next, or if the ground was dry, or if God had spoken in the bird song. I just laid down my cloth, let my hands go quiet, and let the noise, the wild, bright noise, be a visitor who owed us nothing. The lamps burned low, the air smelled of straw and warmth, with a sharpness from the oil and a dull sweetness from the bread. Feet padded quietly along wood. The world grew softer. Every time the bird calls returned, we learned how to hold ourselves open without clutching at the meaning, how to let a sound be just a sound, how to let the silence answer for itself. Noah sat at the far end, marking something on an old bit of wood, counting, it seemed, or maybe nothing at all. He never raised his eyes, not even when a dove fluttered past the window's edge with a sound like dropped silk. For long stretches there was nothing again, just our breathing and the unhurried comfort of doing nothing much. Even the animals in their pens watched with soft eyes, blinking and waiting for their own reason to speak. Some afternoons the wind brought rain and the bird voices faded. The ark returned to its old hush, only heavier now, weighted with listening. At dusk, just before we lowered the lamp, a brighter streak outside. That same dove, then another, gone again, quick as hope. No one cheered. No one ran to the window or pressed against the door. We sat as always, quiet, easy, folded into each other's gentle presence. Like people in prayer who have run out of requests, after a while, even excitement became a kind of listening, even hunger, even the ache of waiting for the next small sign. Those who had tried to understand everything in the early days about rain or flood or voice or God now found themselves content to hear whatever came and let the rest go. In time, we came to love the sound of unanswered songs. How they seemed to make a nest out of our patience. How the birds brought no news, no gospel, just their being, as stubborn and generous as the morning. No one remembered who was the first to close their eyes, lulled by wing and wind. But before long we slept deeply all together, with the ark empty of words and full of waiting. That is how the day passed, letting sharp calls and soft ones thread over us, never knowing what they meant. Sometimes it is holy not to answer. Sometimes it is enough to listen and be silent and wait for God to speak if and when He wishes. We did not know what waited outside or how soon the time would come. But the birds were already flying home, without questions, without explanation, carried by the promise of open sky. Inside, the ark was quiet, not empty, not lonely, just listening and blessed, in a way only those who are truly silent can be. The first stretch of morning feels heavier than you'd expect, not rushed, not pulled by worry, just the simple weight of lying still for so long. Bodies slowly remember themselves, ankles rotate, knees lift, a shoulder rolling backward in the half-light. You hear a soft creak, not from the ark but from someone's spine nearby, bending gently after a night curled close in holy vigil. No one has to say anything yet. There is kindness in the silence, a trust in what the next hour will bring, even if it's only more sitting, more quiet. The stone floor feels cooler than before, pressing against the heel of your hand as you push yourself upright. The air is thicker down low, but it shifts as you rise, warmed by breath and soft lantern glow. Someone, a woman just a few blankets away, reaches for her toes with a silent, slow apology to her back. She lets her head hang, hair brushing her shins, and when she breathes out, you can almost hear her body forgive the nearness of the ark, to let go of the old trembling, to stretch into spaces that no longer feel warped by fear. There's a gentle domino of movement now. Fingers fumble for sandals. Joints pop a little, knees shuffling under woven robes. Ankles circle, loosening the memory of cold stone. Warmth flows back into wrists and elbows, moving upward, outward like forgiveness, but quiet and practical. A way to thank your body for carrying you through another night. Someone coughs. Someone else sips the last of their water by the wall and hugs their knees, letting themselves rest longer. The old priest snores again, and the sound is soft enough to keep you company, a sign that even the most sacred are sometimes just tired. The night lamps gutter, trailing a thin wisp of smoke as morning slips in. Light crawls along the floor inch by inch. Nobody hurries. There's nowhere to run. This is how sacred spaces teach us, slow and slower still. Samuel is the smallest among us tonight. He's tucked tightly near Eli, his brown hair messy against his blanket. In sleep, Samuel's lips lift at the corners, a smile just for himself, the secret joy of a child who's heard his name whispered by God. He doesn't wake yet. There's no need. The whisper is enough to stay resting, to keep drifting on the tide of whatever holy words were spoken in the quiet dark. And for the rest of us, Limbs move without rushing, bones realign, backs arch away from dreams. The day feels fresher already, just from the slowness, just from the way everyone gives their bodies permission to begin again, outside of fear. Everyone who's lived too close to awe knows this, how warmth returns in the simplest moments, how you remember you have hands and stretch them open just to feel the air. You are allowed. You are allowed to be ordinary again after all that waiting in the dark. She sits in the quiet room, knees drawn up, toes nearly touching the cool stone floor. Her brother is asleep just a few steps away. His blanket rises and falls soft and slow. Out in the city, a flock of doves clatters and then goes still. Nothing else stirs. She's careful not to move too much. The oil lamp throws a hush of gold against the walls. She watches the tiniest twitch beneath his eyelid, a dream, maybe. His face frowns, then smooths out again. He breathes. She listens for his next exhale and lets her own breath fall in step with his. Nobody taught her to do that. She just did, matching him as if the night could be steadied by two pairs of lungs instead of one. She closes her eyes not to sleep but just to listen. There's no rush, no need for words. Just the quiet, the rhythm, the little pause before the next gentle inhale. That pause is a world entirely. Somewhere nearby, a little mouse scuttles inside a sack of barley. The air tastes cool like river water. She is not thinking about the next day, only about the now, the simple, holy stillness of sharing the same breath at the edge of dreams. A dove circles in her brother's dream and maybe, somehow, she knows. Nothing seems to happen, but everything does. She opens her eyes, glances at his hands curled softly against his cheek. He's holding nothing. He asked for nothing. Still, he looks so full. Maybe God's presence is like that, quiet and unnoticed, only seen when you stop looking for it. She watches the lamplight play along his brow and yawns without sound. The outside world dims. Every few heartbeats, his eyelid trembles. Sometimes his foot nudges the blanket. She remembers times he cried out in sleep, frightened, and she'd press her hand into his back until he settled. Tonight all is calm. There's a closeness in the hush, a kind of silent prayer, showing up with nothing but breath, letting him rest while she keeps watch. The room is getting darker, the oil almost gone. The silence widens out. She hopes that in some deep place her presence joins his sleep like salt joining water. You wouldn't notice it unless it were missing. The window above the door grows gray with the last light. She listens for the smallest things, the steady rhythm of his nose as it meets the night, the nearly invisible tremble as his eyes flicker beneath closed lids, the way their breathing keeps falling back together, even when it slips apart for a bit. She waits for the next exhale, lets hers follow behind, gentle as a leaf drifting down to earth. She thinks about the story their father told, a man watching a dove fly back and forth, searching for dry land, waiting as the days stretched slow and quiet. Love can look like that, slow, simple waiting, hope held open without words. Somewhere a breeze stirs the curtain. She doesn't try to name what she feels. She only notices how right it is to be here, to keep company with his sleeping self, even if he'll never remember, even if she doesn't move at all. The holy thing happens in the stillness. Love sits nearby, quietly watching, needing nothing in return. She breathes in once more, lets it out with him, and lets the world slip away. It's not quite dark yet, but the day is finished. Everything inside the temple feels hushed, not silent, just quieter than any other place. At the edge, the last sunlight slips in through the door, landing soft and yellow on the stones. A boy stands near the fire pit. His tunic is a little too long, the sleeves falling past his wrists as he gathers up the broom. The handle is smooth from so many hands before his mother's, uncles, tired priests after a festival. It fits in his palm without thinking about it. Ash waits in gray beds beneath the cracked stones. Some days it's heavy, falling out in little piles when he brushes. Other days it's fine as dust, floating for a second in the gold of the light. He sweeps without hurry. The sound is tiny, a whisper against the stone floor. The bristles leave crooked patterns at first like river lines, then neater paths as he remembers to use both hands. The ash moves, but it doesn't leave right away. It gathers little by little in a heap beside his sandals. It's not sad work. It never has been. He doesn't wish for something else. This is the work that waits every dusk, ash from the lamp wicks that burned all day, ash from the little offerings put out like a sigh, ash from the pan where bread cracked and sizzled. He stops once to look at his fingers. The creases are black, not just the tips but the lines near his thumb where the broom pressed. He rubs his finger on the side of his tunic. The fabric leaves a smudge, but the soot stays in the skin's tiny rivers. In the far corner, someone else is at the ark, older, shoulders bent. The man's hands move slowly, cloth folded over itself, wiping the face of a shallow brass pan. The pan is dark in the center, shining at the rim where the fire never quite touched. For a moment the boy watches. He listens for the scrape of the cloth, the soft huff of the man's breathing. He notices a spot the man missed. He almost tells him. He doesn't, not out of fear, but because it doesn't need to be said. This is the part of evening that goes unseen. When the lamps burn low and breath gets heavier, both of them working. Ash and soot, neither beautiful nor ugly. It just is. He collects the ash into a clay bowl. The bowl's lip is chipped. Long ago it must have been perfect, but now it is only ours. It makes a quiet hollow sound when he sets it down next to the pit. The ash goes into the pit with a half lift, half pour. No dust rises tonight. The air is damp, maybe. Or maybe he's just better at it now. Little traces cling to the side of the bowl and he wipes them with a thumb, leaving a gray streak across the surface. A lamp flickers behind him. Its light throws their shadows tall and thin against the curtain. His own shadow looks older, longer, like the men who sit talking out in the courtyard. No one says anything. There's nothing needed to fill the quiet. He stacks the broom in its corner, nestles it in like a resting animal, bristles curled. He runs a hand over the stone where the ash sat, feeling for what's left. Sometimes warmth lingers hours after the fire's gone. Tonight the stone is only a little warm. His palm leaves a print in the fine dust. The man at the ark nods at him. Not approval, just a kind of seeing. They both look at the work as it is now, quiet, empty, ready for tomorrow. He thinks of other nights when he'd hurry to finish, hoping to join friends or find his mother before supper. But more and more he lingers, just a breath more after the last sweep. He remembers one ancient story from before he was born, the flood, the long waiting. In that story, a dove carried an olive branch above the waters, sign enough that emptiness can give way to something green. He doesn't know why he thinks of it. Maybe it's the way the ashes look, soft as feathers in the half-light. Maybe it's just another shape the mind finds at dusk. He doesn't pray aloud, but in his chest there is a hush. The kind of pause a person makes before listening or before resting. The whole temple sighs around him, stones, lamps, night air folding in. He sits for a while on the step, rubbing soot off his thumb. The sound is gentle. There's nothing urgent left to do. He watches the dust float in a shaft of lamp light. Let this moment stretch, stillness comes, old as stone. Even the quiet is heavy with meaning. His breath grows slower. He feels the last warmth leave the stone. The broom leans at its post. In the ark, soot waits to be wiped up again tomorrow. Ash waits to gather. But he is here in the middle of these little disappearings. Nothing wasted, nothing grand. The boy stands, rolling his sleeves. He makes his way toward the back, feet silent, leaving only a whisper of dust. He asks for nothing and still feels full. No one notices his prayer, but it is heard. Some nights, the only sound that matters is the air that moves in and out unhurried. The world is tighter inside the ark, yet softer for it. Everyone waits, not just for a sign, but for the next quiet thing to come. Most beasts are asleep. You hear the steadiness in their breath before you even see them. Their sides rise and fall, slow as the moon. Cows let out a deep, loose exhale. Sheep murmur under their wool, barely making a shape in the dark. A goat flicks her ear at something small, then settles again. Her hooves scuff, then go still. The old bull snorts soft and low, nothing urgent. A donkey puffs, almost like a sigh. There are always little noises. Something snuffles, someone in the far stalls shifts on the straw. Above, birds creak now and then, stretching a wing, settling back. But mostly it's breathing, easy, patient, shared. Noah's lantern half-wick, almost spent, sends a small yellow arc onto the wood. Shadows move around more than people do. The torchlight can't fill the corners. That's fine. Nothing needs to be seen here. A tune drifts from the back, so faint it might only be the memory of music. Maybe Shem, maybe not. It's the kind of lull you forget as soon as you hear it, but it keeps the dark from feeling sharp. Someone hums and the whole place hums back in its own way. You sit, you listen, breathing the old air together. Even your own chest moves like theirs, a little slower at night. The smell is familiar. Hay, fur, oil from the nearest lamp. The rhythm of it all is simple, and you find yourself joining in without meaning to. Even strange animals, ones you never saw before, feel like neighbors now. There's a kind of privacy to this hush. You remember the wildness from the early days, how the horses once stamped and barkers barked, nerves dancing everywhere. Not now. Tonight the ark is a lung, everyone inside breathing for each other. Nothing new comes. Nothing leaves. Outside, water waits in the deep, but in here, it's only life, stacked and quiet and real. A calf moans in her sleep, but her mother noses her gently, and she relaxes. Two turtle doves perch together on a beam, head to wing, unmoving. Every so often, a mouse scuttles low, but even they move with care, soft-footed, pausing whenever a heavier animal exhales. You don't have to do much. Just listen, maybe check the lamps, maybe push more straw near the open stalls. Now and then pour a little grain, your hands working by habit, not thought. There is no rush to it. Each small task returns you back to the breathing and the thin quiet between sounds. Outside, no one knows the hour. It isn't needed. The animals don't keep time. Neither does God, not the way people do. Here in the ark, waiting is as holy as moving. It is enough to let the night take its shape, to count the spaces between each nose breath, each hum, each ear twitch or hoof flick. You notice the patterns after a while. How the lion breathes heavier than the fox, how the chickens settle in a ball, how the dog by the door barely stirs from dusk till dawn. Nothing is alone, though everything has its own way of settling. A twisting rope slackens on its nail as the boat barely rocks, just enough to remind you there's water, but not enough to mean anything else. You pick out details because there is time. The curve of a horn against wood, the outline of feathers in the lantern light, the silent space where a cat curls, nose tucked under tail. For now you ask nothing. You need nothing. Only to share in this slow, breathing night, all of you gathered under a roof made for waiting. The prayer was said hours ago when the lamps were first lit. Now the hush is the prayer, still, warm enough. It's still dark inside, though the air feels thinner near the door, as if morning is wondering if it's time to come in. Noah's sandals rest in the sawdust. He stands by the great door, neither eager nor worried. The wood is old, but it remembers his touch. His hand rests just where the grain swirls around the latch, warm from the sleep of the night. There is nothing urgent. He waits, and the wood waits with him. The others are quiet. Some are dozing in corners, backs curled soft against cedar boards. A sheep snuffles somewhere beneath the rafters, then goes still. It almost feels as if the animals know this moment matters, yet isn't supposed to be loud. The sounds are soft, a slow breath in the belly of the ark. Noah places his palm over the latch, not pulling, not pressing. His thumb feels the dip, polished by years, by rain, by hands, by hope. Sometimes a splinter catches, but tonight the wood is gentle. The quiet reaches over him, heavy as a blanket sometimes. Waiting is louder than rain. He thinks of the days before, when storms made the roof hum and the world was only water beating down. But here, with just a breeze on the other side, silence feels new. The door is cool against his skin. He leans in, forehead to plank, listening for more than he hears. A dove somewhere on the far post shifts her wings but does not call. The light from the small window falls in slanted lines, just enough to see the dust on the hinge, the grain traveling in quiet circles. He thinks maybe 1,000,000 prayers sit inside these boards. None are said out loud now. He closes his eyes. Maybe he prays, maybe he just listens. There's a hush. Something about the not yet makes it sacred. It's the moment for small things. The pulse of wood, a heartbeat in the palm, the sound of Eli's quiet snore drifting from the other side. Somewhere Samuel stirs in his sleep, just a small sound, a gentle turning on his mat back in a temple of a future time. The world is full of doors, some closed, some waiting, some just touched, not yet opened. Noah rolls his shoulder, careful not to wake anyone. The latch sits warm between his fingers. It is not time yet. The wind outside whispers nothing urgent. He does not open the door, not because he doubts, just because holiness can wait too. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The ark rocks a little, gentle as someone swaying in prayer. Every nail, every beam, every splinter grew quiet for this slow breath before the new. The earth outside is changing. He can smell green things and cold mud, but he lets the waiting last. The door might open soon, or later. There is no rush to be born again. He turns his hand so his knuckles rest on the threshold, feeling the pattern of old repairs, old promises. He remembers how it was built, plank by plank, all those seasons ago. How the world closed up before, now about to open. But not yet. Stillness holds him. No one moves. No one needs to. The Lord knows their breath. Even the dust is safe in the half-light. Even boredom is holy here. The ark is a hush, the door a listening place. And outside, the wind waits too, not in a hurry, just ready. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. Evening settled in as if it had nowhere else to go. The air inside the temple was soft, carrying the quiet weight of a long, ordinary day. The lamps burned low along the walls, their flames shrinking every hour, shadows folding over the stones. The ark, standing quietly behind its worn curtains, caught the last glimmer and let it fade. Even the divine, it seemed, could sit in silence for a while. No revelations came, no sudden voices or flashes, just the gentle hush that shaped every Sabbath, the space between stories, the holy boredom, when nothing was required but to rest. Even this silence is holy. Samuel rested with his head turned toward the wall, one arm sprawled in the woven dark. His breaths were steady, deep enough to settle the heart, not quite deep enough for sleep. The air held the sweet ache of oil and old cedar. Somewhere near his feet, Eli's slow breathing matched the rhythm, slow in, slower out, like a distant lullaby. Let this moment stretch. The ark, ancient and quiet, was only a few steps away, but it felt farther at night. The golden edges dulled without torchlight, fading to nothing. No one came to pray, no flicker of prophecy. Even the animals knew it was time to yield. The goats, restless at sunset, lay curled beneath the benches. Their bodies, warm and unmoving, made small hills in the straw. Somewhere overhead, a sparrow rustled in its nest, tucked under the eaves. Not for a sign, just for comfort. Food, breath, sleep. That was enough tonight. A plate from dinner sat under the table, untouched figs and only a crust left of bread. Samuel's hand brushed the floor, cool, earthen, permanent. He felt the weight of nothing happening, like he was inside a long, slow exhale. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Even the priests had drifted off, their footsteps making quiet trails through dust. One by one they had folded linens, checked the doors, and blown out the tallest lamp. In the darkness, you could almost believe the world had stopped spinning. Let the stillness do the work. Hours drifted. The oil lamps grew thinner, their light sinking into bowls of shadow. There was no hurry to replace them. Sabbath made waiting the holiest work of all. Small hands pressed into the cool stone, Samuel tracking his breath, counting the rise and fall, learning, without words, how to listen for the quietest voice. The night listens with you. Maybe it was dream, maybe not. Maybe the night was only a room and sleep was just an open door. Samuel turned on his mat, hair brushing the edge of a folded tunic. His eyes blinked open, then drifted shut. He felt a name stir in the darkness. It brushed past his ear, hesitant and soft, not a shout, not a command, just the careful hush of someone who loved him enough to wait. Maybe it was his name. Maybe it was yours. No reply was necessary. Outside, the wind slowed against the walls. Even the city gave in, clay rooftops settling beneath the stars. In the alley, a cat pressed its nose against the cold stone. Somewhere, water moved in the pitcher beside the door. Every small sound folded into the quiet. Boredom became a kind of prayer. Eli shifted on his mat, sighing, a sound so old it might belong to the earth itself. Samuel listened, letting each else's breathing sink into his. Together, their quiet filled the room, a gentle company that needed nothing to be complete. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. In this hour, even God seemed to wait. Rest came, not like a miracle, but like a body finally ready to let go. He didn't need to understand the silence. He only needed to receive it. Let the holy stillness cover you. Let your thoughts thrum like moths within the dark. Let your heart spread wide upon the stone. Nothing rushed. Not the night. Not the soul. Even the lamps sputtering, low, lingered for a few last moments, wicks barely alive. Was anyone watching? Did God notice every flicker, every drawn-out breath? A goat scratched at its ear. The old priest in sleep murmured something too soft to understand, maybe the shape of an ancient blessing or just a memory passing through. Let this moment stretch, time bent here. No news, no visions. Only the slow, unfinished work of rest. Samuel curled tighter, his knees pulled up, arms beside his chest, as if holding onto a dream he'd not yet remembered. The ark waited too. No answers, no thunder, only presence. The silence felt bigger than the room. Even this weariness is holy. He did not try to find God in the dark. There was no need. When nothing happened, everything was welcome. Growth hid inside the slow, regular breathing. Grace rode on the back of routine. A lantern guttered, nearly out. Samuel watched its flame fight for a last bit of oil, then slumped back against the mat, one more witness to the evening without announcement. Hands open, mind quiet. Lamps dim, animals settle, heads droop. The story waits for no ending. All that was left was the promise of tomorrow folded in the blanket of now. So take one more slow breath. Let this moment carry you as it carried Samuel tucked into the hush beside glory. No need for reply, only for rest. Even this silence is holy. Genesis 8:6-12. The day ends the way it always does, quietly, unseen, one by one. The stars step into the sky. No one calls them up. No one notices the pattern. They just appear gentle, easy, like they do every single night. The floor in the temple has cooled, stone and pressed earth, the kind of cold that you only sense in your feet. Somewhere far off in a corner, a soft sound from a mouse, or maybe just the old wood remembering the sun. Samuel is on his mat, the kind of mat that's never really soft, but after a day like this, it feels good enough. He doesn't move much. His toes just curl a little. Someone, maybe Eli, maybe not, shakes out a blanket, lays it over Samuel's shoulders, pulls it up to his chin without thinking. Not a grand gesture, not a duty, just the way you tuck in a child like you always do. The lamps burn low. You can almost count their last breaths. Gold turning to orange, flickering, the ark, its shape quiet, undisturbed. Old stories inside, but tonight just closed, resting like the day itself. The world outside is turning dark blue. No more work, no more voices. The pots have been cleaned. The sandals lined up at the door. Even the bread settles in its basket, letting the silence smooth it out. Samuel can hear Eli's breathing, slow, uneven, the sound of someone who's carried many years into bed. Even that raspy breath feels safe tonight, like being rocked gently by something older than words. The very last candle tries to